What's going on, everybody? It's AG here. Today, we're going to be taking a look at my top 10 Big 12 expansion candidates. We did a video on the Pac 12 last week. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a link at the end of the video. The Big 12, I really don't know what the best case scenario is. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But, there were some rumors last year that they might end up getting Florida State and Clemson if the ACC collapsed. I don't really know if that's an option. Best case scenario for them might be for the ACC to somewhat collapse, and then the better schools get scooped up by the Big Ten and the SEC, and then they kind of capitalize on that and bring in the leftover scraps from the ACC and essentially merge with them. You're probably not going to get Clemson or Florida State. I don't think that's an option. Best team you might get might be like Miami or something, which is a good option. Will be a good ad, but I don't know if you're getting the Clemsons and Florida States of the world, Virginia, North Carolina. I don't know if that's happening, but it could. But for this video, we're not going to do that. So the ACC is off the table for this video. If that did happen, that would be good for the Big 12, because even if you don't get those schools, if you bring in somehow like Duke, Miami, you're still doing something good. Pitt, definitely good options. But right now, the Big 12 sits at 16 schools. Last year, they added the Pac-12 ones, Arizona State, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, out of that direction, Colorado, Utah, they've expanded in a bunch of different directions from the American Conference, from the Pac-12. So today, as far as who we're looking at, Notre Dame's off the table too. That's another one that's not going to happen. So what is the best case scenario for the Big 12? I really don't know. Let me know down in the comment section your thoughts on that. By the way, what do you think the best case scenario going forward is for the Big 12? Because it seems like inevitably, eventually, we're going to expand. Almost every conference is going to be like 20 teams. Big 12 is in a good spot right now, I think, as far as holding on for dear life. There were a couple of years where it kind of looked like the Big 12 might be done. I think they're in good shape right now, though. Are they near the Big Ten or the SEC? No. But as far as the ACC is concerned, I think the ACC is more top heavy, but I think the Big 12 is doing pretty good. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the honorable mentions here. First off, we got Colorado State. Now, Pac-12 schools are not off the table here, obviously, because there's a new look Pac-12. They're expanding to probably 8 teams next year. Colorado State comes in as an honorable mention. Would make sense to pair them with Colorado. Colorado State makes a lot of revenue for the G5 schools and is pretty consistent in terms of basketball. Could help you as well, because the Big 12 is a good basketball conference right now. Colorado State would definitely help you out. Next up, Rice. Already got a school in Houston, obviously at the University of Houston. But if you bring in another Texas school, that's not bad. You bring in an old Southwest school. The more you can take control of Texas, the better you're doing. Now, obviously, some schools we'll look at later. You want to get into a state that the main school in that state is not yet taken. So that's like why Virginia and North Carolina are so widely heralded by, supposedly, the SEC and the Big Ten, is because of that. So you could get into that school, get into that state that doesn't have a school yet in that state. Looking at the basketball side of things, we've got 2 teams here I want to talk about if they decide to go basketball only, because you could see a scenario where they add probably 4 teams to get to 20 in football, and then they have a couple basketball only schools. They talked to Gonzaga last year, which we'll talk about later. St. Mary's would be a good pairing with Gonzaga. Good basketball school, gives Gonzaga a traveling partner out there, out west. St. Mary's makes a lot of sense in terms of that, but I don't know how much revenue they're necessarily making. Another one is Dayton. Dayton basketball only up in Ohio could make sense with Cincinnati, West Virginia. If you end up expanding to 20 schools, having different pods, Dayton would make a lot of sense. Another honorable mention here in Texas, North Texas, one of the main schools that is kind of getting a lot of hype lately for moving up. Most honorable mentions are Texas schools, by the way, just because there's so many of them. But North Texas could pretty much complete the Metroplex for you, to where you have, besides SMU, you've got every surrounding school. Would make a lot of sense. And then UTSA, last honorable mention, they'll probably eventually wind up in the Pac-12. Maybe. Depends on if they're making more money there than they are in the American. UTSA is shooting up fast. It's a market that is untapped in San Antonio. That's a big city and a big state that's not yet capitalized on by a power conference, which I'm kind of surprised by. So you can see San Antonio moving up. All right, getting into 10. First off, tied for 10th, we have two teams. It's going to be Washington State and Oregon State. Both these schools, kind of the leftovers of the Pac-12, the only two schools that didn't get scooped up by the Big 12 or the SEC or the Big 10. Not SEC, sorry, ACC. You saw Cal and Stanford go over there. Oregon State and Washington State, kind of, I don't know. I don't know how much money they're making you. Now, the good thing for them is they already have a leg up, like a step up compared to a lot of these G5 schools that are moving in the Pac-12 because they've been there before. So they're closer to a Power 4 conference school than they are a G5 school, but also at the same, or in comparison to the G5 schools, but at the same time, there's a reason they got left out. And that's that I think they might get skipped over again inevitably because they're just not that much potential for them. So that's why I got them tied for 10th. 9th place, we've got Nevada. The reason they're here is because, like I said, you want to get into a state that doesn't have a power conference already in that state. Nevada is the main school in there in Nevada. Sorry, I'm struggling here. A lot of talking. They're the main school in that state. You get into that state, you pretty much take control of that state in terms of recruits. No recruits are probably leaving Nevada unless they're going to the Big 12. Big market that's untapped. I think Nevada makes sense. New Mexico, same thing. They are untapped as far as the state is concerned. You get in New Mexico, makes sense pairing them with Arizona, Utah, Colorado. New Mexico would actually make a lot of sense, I think. Football-wise, I don't know how much they're doing for you. Basketball-wise, they're pretty consistent. Number 7, San Diego State. Get out in California. Kind of pair them with the Pac-12 schools you've brought previously. San Diego State's a big market that is untapped as well. You could see them moving up. I think they were a finalist last time that the Big 12 tried to expand. Number 6, Gonzaga. Now, they had talks with them last year, and reportedly it came pretty close to actually happening. When Gonzaga played Texas in basketball, Gonzaga came down, and apparently they met with Big 12 representatives and actually kind of led somewhere. Gonzaga is joining the Pac-12, so we'll see what comes of that. But I could see them bringing in Gonzaga along with like the same areas that we talked about earlier. Number 5, we've got Tulane. Not a Big 12 school in Louisiana yet. You get into New Orleans, a pretty big market. I don't know how big the fan base necessarily is for Tulane, but it's a consistent football school. They're really good. They've got a good coach right now, John Summerall. If you can get them now before he leaves, you're doing something right. Now, if you wait till he's gone, like Cincinnati did with Luke Fickell, you might be in trouble. But as of right now, Tulane's a good school to get. Number 4, UConn. Big 12 has had serious discussions with them. Probably the most out of any school, them and Gonzaga. This would, football-wise, I don't know how much it's going to do for you, but eventually UConn might be okay in football if they join. But basketball-wise, you're bringing a team that's in Final Four contention every year, a team that won a national championship a couple years ago. UConn's a good school to go get. Number 3, UNLV. You get into Las Vegas, which is a widely heralded market, big market with a lot of potential, especially with NIL going on now. Brings in a lot of money, brings in eyes to the Big 12 from that side of the world, getting into the West, and pretty good football and basketball consistent-wise. All right, so these top 3, I think, are a tier above everybody else right now for me. Now, I don't know if the Big 12 will go right that way, but if it was me, I would. UNLV, then we got USF. Go get into South Florida. You've already got Central Florida and UCF. You pair them up with USF. You're not probably going to compete with the Florida States and Floridas of the world and even Miami in terms of recruiting, but every other recruit that tries to get out of Florida, you're probably taking. And getting into Florida, if you can get into Florida, Texas, and California, you're doing something right in terms of recruiting-wise. So I think South Florida's got to be up there. Number 1, got to be Memphis. I'm kind of surprised they have not gotten an invite yet. There are rumors that the Pac-12 invited them, but they're holding out for a bigger offer from the ACC or the Big 12. They've been a finalist multiple times when the Big 12 has decided to expand. Memphis makes a lot of sense. So widely heralded market. It is a school that's consistent in football and in basketball. Brings in a lot of money. You've got the FedEx money. I think Memphis makes a lot of sense. So those are my top 10 teams for Big 12 realignment. Who do you think the Big 12 will add if they add anybody? Who would you add? Let me know. Are the ACC schools on the table? What do you guys think? Comment down below. Make sure to like this video. Most importantly, if you're not yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me.